Okay, number one, it's high and it's affecting the community negative. How so?
Skills development, the program that do skills development. I want to see improvement. I wish we can get employed.
To be here with us just to shed some light as we talk about unemployment, as we talk about how can we try to alleviate this unemployment that we see even in our country. Tony, welcome to the News Desk. Good evening to you.
My name is Tholithembelihle. I am from known as the Youth Employment Service. So what we do at YES is that we're trying to break the experience trap because most young people try and apply for jobs, and one of the requirements is that they need to have experience, whereas 3 out of 5 young people actually are struggling to gain employment. And if that's the case, then where do corporate or where does corporate or the public sector expect these young people to actually have that experience that they require when they are actually putting those requirements up? So what we do,
you know, there's been a drop with the second quarter unemployment rate that we know of 0.6. Do you think that is it us taking baby steps to improving this, or there's still a huge way for us to go in South Africa?
Okay. I think in general, any improvement is welcomed and it's a good thing. However, this improvement happens in the context of where now COVID is not as extreme as it was, and that's also had an impact on our unemployment rates. So we can't celebrate yet. In fact, the slow growth of our economy indicates that there's still a lot of work that needs to be done. Our unemployment rate shouldn't be at the level that it is, especially for young people. Because for me, it's an indication that young people are going to school, they're getting the necessary qualifications, but because of the skills mismatch, and also because of the lack of focus in terms of the high growth sectors, be it by government or whoever, the different stakeholders, then the youth unemployment rate is going to remain at that same level. So there's absolutely nothing to celebrate, because young people shouldn't be going to school, getting qualifications, be it diplomas, degrees, and then sitting at home at the high rates that we're currently experiencing in our country. So personally, I think it's a bit unfair to have an expectation for young people to be creative and find a way to actually live out of nowhere if the structural realities in our country don't allow for because young people do want to take ownership of their lives. So you'll find young people that want to be entrepreneurs. However, there's a lot of red tape that exists. And that's why we would then we're more favorable to legislation such as the Township Economic Development Bill. Well, it's not a bill anymore because it's been enacted, but I'm just saying that we can't get a point where we want to blame it solely on these young people. It's a structural or systemic issue, and for as long as government and different stakeholders are not coming on board to fix it on that level, young people can do anything, everything and anything, but there's always just going to be an exception that makes it. And that's why when we consistently motivate young people, we literally use the same people or the same faces over and over to say, if this person can do it, if the guy from Skinny Blue Socks can do it, then you can all be entrepreneurs. That's not true, because then we wouldn't have the exceptions. So the responsibility in a nutshell doesn't lie solely with young people. It lies with all stakeholders. It needs a multi-sectoral approach. It needs a government that needs to understand what the high growth sectors are, as I've mentioned, your digital skills, your ICT, and also ensuring that from when young people are in school, they're able to pick the correct subjects. Because you go to school, then you think, oh, I want to study something in humanities. Then you finish your degree, and when you're not getting employed, then you wonder why. But it's because you haven't been advised from a structural level. Because remember, unemployment is systemic. You don't wake up today and there's high rates of unemployment. And also, it's also linked to the global system. So if globally this unemployment in the global north is high, then you can't expect it to be lower in the global south. Because all of these things are interlinked, all of these stakeholders are interlinked. So if there's no multi-sectoral approach to actually reimagining the labor system, because the labor system now also, here's the reality, it's not as industrial as it used to be back in the day. Currently, we have more young people that are freelancers, that are in short-term contracts, but the incentive schemes for these companies don't cater for that. In fact, they're so outdated, the policies that exist, that they don't take into cognizance that the labor system has been reimagined, especially post-COVID. So I think those are discussions that we need to have on a structural level, and also stop trying to use a blanket approach to our solutions, because different solutions apply as informed by different contexts. So those are my thoughts around that. Can pitch to say, hey, I'd like to work for you. I'm Tholi, I'm good at this and this and this and this and that. I'd like to work for you. If you can't condense it into 10 seconds, nobody's going to take you seriously, because remember, we are living in a fast-paced economy, and it's important that you're able to actually adapt to that. So in a nutshell, be as concise as possible, highlight your skills, your strengths, awards, recognitions, and sell yourself the best way that you know how, and don't add unnecessary things. And have reliable references on your CV. Don't have people who we won't be able to call or email or actually even reach via call. So alert them that I've added you as a reference, I'm job hunting. So please always be expectant of that kind of communique, and then it will make it much easier for you as a young person looking for employment.
And speaking of references, there's always this thing of, I'm going to put my sister, and then my sister is going to act as if a manager of a NP. I was working there 6 months. What happens in those cases also?
Yeah, so that's not a good idea, because obviously that's a conflict of interest. Because when we call your sister, most people actually make the most basic mistakes, because you put your sister's name and surname there, there's a match. We call your sister's not even aware that we're calling in reference to that. They answer in such a casual, nonchalant manner, and it's just that I think the conduct that happens in relation to your employment and your career growth is different from what you would do with your personal relations. So don't post, we know your sister loves you. We know that you form part of the church volunteer group and the pastor loves you. But if it doesn't apply, don't put that on your CV, because then it takes away the credibility of the recruitment process. Remember, the recruitment process needs to be as credible as possible. The person that's your reference needs to speak to your skills and needs to be as objective as possible. So your father, your boyfriend, and your sister, we don't take as a credible source of reference. In fact, we'll call them and realize that, oh, there's a discrepancy here, and then we're actually not even going to hire you. And that's such a minor thing, even though you have all the necessary skills. So you need to always take the process seriously. Put the people who actually know what your skills are, who you've worked with before. And it doesn't mean it has to be the CEO of the company. Any person that you've worked with that was your direct boss needs to be able to say, I can account for this human being. And if that doesn't happen, then you have a problem, and you can't say that's a credible reference.
Sure. Please do enjoy the rest of your evening, and next time again when we call you again, when we talk about these issues, please do answer the phone.
Definitely. Thanks for having me. It was definitely quite informative. I do hope we'll have more of these, and not just on Instagram, but also just going into the communities where young people are actually found, so we can actually solve the structural issue of youth unemployment. But thanks for having me.